Hi everyone, welcome to my podcast, This Much I Know, and I'm your host, Selwyn Milborrow. It's the year 2020, and we are still dealing with a virus called racism. The recent protests in the United States that reached into every corner of America are not only about police brutality or justice. It's a fight to dismantle and ultimately destroy racism in all its disguises. The protests evoked memories of my childhood years during the most turbulent period of the fight against apartheid. Growing up with the fear that the color of my skin could be used against me at any moment was something I had no choice but to accept. In 1985, the apartheid government declared a state of emergency that gave the police unlimited powers in its crackdown on blacks or anyone resisting apartheid. It was illegal for more than 10 blacks to gather in one place at any given time. Now, isn't that ironic that social distancing regulations, like during the COVID-19 pandemic, was already a thing back then? The sight of a yellow police van filled me with paralyzing fear every time it passed me on my way to school or to the shop. Some of my classmates disappeared under mysterious circumstances during the night. And I've witnessed people in despair being pushed to the edge. The images of violence and inhumanity against blacks during the state of emergency in the 1980s will forever be etched in my mind. Yes, we defeated apartheid, but racism went underground. 55 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have dreamed that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." That dream came true, but he didn't live to witness it. However, he knew that racism is a virus that could be detected, but in most cases remain undetected in the hearts and minds of racists. In South Africa, we have witnessed a rainbow nation being birthed, but little did we know about the wicked power of racism to hide in plain sight. We saw it in the case against Penny Sparrow, the first person to be found guilty of criminal injuria for a racist slur on social media in post-apartheid South Africa. And there are thousands of other similar stories currently happening in the workplace and around us. In the United States, thanks to video recording technology, the power of racism to hide undetected failed when a video surfaced on social media of a police officer kneeling on the neck of George Floyd, an African-American man, until he died. It led to protests in Minneapolis on May 26, 2020. And that's a day after Floyd was killed during the police arrest. Not even Floyd's cry for his mother or the words, "I can't breathe," could stop the police officer from kneeling on him until he took his last breath. Let's be honest. If people saw a video on Facebook or Twitter of a man digging his knee into the neck of a dog until he died, they would be utterly horrified. They would almost certainly click, comment, and call for the man's immediate arrest. If that upsets people more than a cop killing a black man, then they are not part of the vaccine we are so desperately needing, but they are part of the deadly racist virus. In South Africa, the oppression and killing of thousands of black people in the name of apartheid also drew the attention of the world, but sadly, we were left to fight and defeat the beast, this virus, mostly on our own. We as blacks were born into a history of exhaustion based on the oppression that started with colonialism centuries ago. Our parents, grandparents and great-grandparents carried those memories with them. It's imprinted in our DNA. We're not dealing with a lack of emotional intelligence, but with the everyday behaviors, perceptions, perspectives, and assumptions of some white people who claim an unawareness that a race problem exists. These few whites who have never experienced racism claim that they don't see color and that all lives matter. In order to feel good, they engage in a blatant denial of what's going on around them. My message to them is to stop hiding behind institutionalized racism. What's happening today is so much more than just saying, I don't see color. It's about acknowledging that there's a problem. For them to say that all lives matter during a protest against racism not only calls for serious introspection, but ultimately for an immediate dismantling of racist mindsets. It calls for the destruction of systems rigged in such a way to marginalize and oppress black people. It calls for recognition that there's a problem, a systemic problem in the workplace, at school, at university, and in the church. In response to the protests, Barack Obama wrote that if we want to bring about real change, then the choice isn't between protest and politics. We have to do both. The same goes for us as South Africans, where institutional racism and something as unthinkable as service delivery protests are choking us. First, let's raise awareness, then vote with our conscience. It won't bring about sudden change because as a species we have become disconnected from each other and from ourselves long ago. However, there's an urgency to find unity in our diversity. Nelson Mandela said, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite." I conclude with the words of the philosopher Socrates that sounds more like a call to action for all of us. He said, "An unexamined life is not worth living."